I'm Evan Roberts, and I'm the judge of Elkhart Superior Court Number 1, and I'm responsible for maintaining the court, administering the court, addressing a budget which is approximately $240,000 to $250,000 a year of the county taxpayers' money. I have a caseload which consists of about 2,000 active cases made up of approximately 700 or 800 criminal cases, and the rest are civil cases. From a criminal standpoint, this court addresses all of the adult rape cases in Elkhart County, adult meaning anyone 18 or older. If there's a child involved, that goes to another court in the county. I handle all of the felony domestic violence cases, a charge called criminal deviant conduct, which is very close to sodomy, what most people think of as sodomy, and a number of other types of cases, mainly involving weapons at a high level of felony. Civilly, the court handles a wide array of different types of civil cases, from divorces to guardianships to estates to paternities to adoptions to contract disputes to personal injury cases, other things that frankly I don't know off the top of my head right now, but there's a number of other types of cases the court handles also.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? Or what you gonna do when they come for you?
I'm not sure I can identify a trend. I see, at least from the Latino community, a number of divorce cases. I see some paternity cases, but not a lot involving the Latinos. I do see some criminal cases where it is Latino on Latino violence. I see some criminal cases where it's the victim is Latino. I see some cases where the alleged accused is Latino, but I'm not sure that there's a lot of a sweeping generalization can be made with respect to one group. I don't see a disproportionate amount of Latinos. I don't see a disproportionate amount of Caucasians, but I'm not sure that there's any real standards to gauge anything against. So, sort of a tough question with a hard answer.
What you gonna do when they come for you? You're too bad. You're too rude.
I think a piece of advice more general than from somebody in my position is first and foremost, stay in school and get an education. Second, stay away from drugs, stay away from alcohol, maintain full-time employment, attend some religious ceremony on a regular basis. With all those recommendations in mind, from my experience, the chances of being in trouble with the law drop dramatically. Most of what I see is fueled by alcohol and drugs. Is fueled by people who don't maintain full-time employment. Is fueled by people who have decided that school was not for them and have not gotten a high school degree, or at least the equivalent of a high school degree. But I don't think that necessarily only applies to the Latino community. I think that applies across the spectrum to everyone.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? When you were 8 and you had bad traits?
I think parents and families are extremely important. I think that parents who raise their children and parent their children on a regular and consistent basis don't have, for the most part, and again there's some exceptions to this, but for the most part, I don't see those children in the courtroom. I don't see the children who are adults. I don't see a lot of defendants in criminal court whose families are sitting in the back of the audience. That doesn't happen very often. It does happen occasionally, but it doesn't happen very often. I think there's times as a parent myself when I remember that I am a parent, and it's tough because I have to be a parent and not necessarily my child's friend. But again, that's no different than anywhere else. In any sort of ethnic group, I think you just need to parent your kids. I also see the very, very strong families that come in here. When they do come, they come in large numbers to support one of their children. I had a trial, last week, where the defendant, who was charged with a very serious violent felony, had a number of family members in court, and that says a lot to not only the judge but also the participants in the trial. I think people who understand that the court is out there to pass judgment and to rule on disputes. A lot of times in civil cases, I have some hesitancy because one of the parties clearly is not in the country legally. The law does not permit me to suddenly deport somebody. That's not my job and not my responsibility civilly. Criminally, there's a whole different set of circumstances that need to take place, but the court is different from the standpoint of we're dealing, at least in this court and in other courts in the county, with people who have been charged with serious felonies. That's different. I think if people, it would be impractical of me and irresponsible of me not to consider the fact that there are people in the country illegally. I think everyone knows that. I think what they need to do is try and do what a lot of our ancestors did and enter the country legally with proper documentation. It's very easy to say, but that's what the law requires. So, in any event, I'm not sure that answered your question. If I had a magic wand, I'm not sure that I could make it an answer applicable to simply the Hispanic community. I would make it applicable to the entire community, everyone. I would do a number of things, and that's a heck of a good question, by the way. First and foremost, I would make sure that everyone gets a good education. Now, I realize not everyone can be a doctor or an engineer, and on the other hand, I only wish I knew how to be an electrician or how to be a plumber. I don't. I can do some, but I know my limitations. In addition, I would ask that everyone not only get an education, but their parents be in the family, and the family unit as a whole stay together. I see a lot of people who have no family. I see a lot of people who have had fiancés for 10 years. I see a lot of people who have no direction in life, no motivation, no sense of responsibility and accountability. In addition to those items, I think drugs are something that we have to continuously deal with. I think they're a scourge on society. And again, that doesn't apply to one particular ethnic group. I think it applies across the board to everyone. I think those are some of my initial thoughts. Obviously, I'd like to see peace and some other things, but those are much grander than we can discuss during this interview. How about that? Mexico, and I've been to a couple of places. While I was stationed in San Diego, I drove through Tijuana and I went down that area. I'm a big rice fan, so I like to eat a lot of rice, which is labeled Mexican rice, but frankly, I'm not sure it really is Mexican rice. My wife and I and our kids do like to go out and eat Mexican food. So one thing in particular, probably, I would imagine to say I'm a good old-fashioned taco. So. Reflection comes and reflection goes. I know some